This is the long-awaited Sony a7 IV 33 megapixel photos, oversampled 4K 10-bit 422. Let's see what it can do. We're out here one-wheeling, enjoying the fall warm weather. I don't know what the heck is going on in Canada. The Sony a7 IV is a really interesting camera because I didn't know what to expect in terms of specs. I wasn't sure which way are they gonna go. And so we do have 4K 10-bit 422. Okay, I'm just gonna stop for a second. 422 oversampled video, which looks pretty great. Depo, what do you think? I mean, we're just judging by the screen, but...
I like the feel of the camera.
The camera is actually pretty much exactly like the Sony a7S III, the body. We have 33 megapixels photos. So this really is like a hybrid shooter camera. Photos, really high quality photos, and high quality video with a caveat.
Did you just say hybrid? Sounds like the perfect camera for me.
It might be.
Photo and video.
Time to finally sell that Canon stuff? I'm always teasing. So we have an incredible 4K image oversampled from 7K. So take 7K, squish it down to 4K, looks incredible. Dare I say it, better than the Sony a7 III? Not 100% sure on that one. Great dynamic range like we're used to with Sony, but caveat, 4K only up to 30 frames per second. I never used 30, so 24 frames per second. Now, we do have 60 frames per second in 4K, but you're gonna have a crop. You're gonna have a 1.5 times crop. I think it's 1.5, quite a bit of a crop, which isn't the end of the world, but when you have a full frame, beautiful camera, beautiful sensor, and then you have to crop it down, it is a little bit of a bummer. Now, we do have 120 frames per second, but only in 1080. It is a really nice 1080, don't get me wrong, especially because it's 10-bit 422, pretty high bit rate, great 120, but it is 1080 only. Not like the 4K 120 that we're used to on the Sony a7S III that I'm using right now, or something like the R5. I will say though, the image looks incredible. All of the footage that I've seen so far looks really detailed and crisp. And I almost want to say it might be better than the Sony a7S III. You know what? Let's switch over. I've been filming right now for these talking heads with the Sony a7S III. Let's go over to the Sony a7 IV and see if you guys can see any difference. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now we're on the Sony a7 IV. Could you tell any difference? Let's do a little side by side here. You guys can pixel peep. I'm not sure. I think it's pretty similar, but I would imagine because of that bigger sensor and then squishing it down, that this a7 IV would actually look a little bit better in the standard 24 frames per second. But probably not as good in low light. Quick low light test. This is ISO 1,002,400. How am I looking? All right, let's dial it down just a little bit, see how good it is. This is ISO 51,200. These are absolutely absurd numbers that I'm saying right now, but yeah, how does it look? 25,600. LCD screen, it looks pretty decent. 12,800. These are not scientific, by the way, in any way. I'm just changing ISOs and some of the settings. All right, low light test. Wait, I can't let this go. Okay. Looking at on the computer, it looks like the Sony a7 IV is like insane at low light. There was almost no, there was very small noise. I'm filming at 100, not a million. I got a little excited there, but 102,400 ISO right now. And I want to see, I'm going to switch over to the A7S in just a second. I want to see what's the difference, because is this actually better? Is this better than the Sony A7S at low light? Could it be? Okay, hold on a second. I'm gonna switch. Okay, so now we are on the Sony A7S. Same settings, shutter 50, f-stop 7.1, and ISO 102,400. The difference, now there could be that even though the noise is much smaller, so in that way it's better in low light possibly, but that the dynamic range, you're starting to lose a lot of dynamic range or other things with the low. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how does this hold up. Okay, I'm just gonna, you can also go much higher, higher. You can go all the way to 400,000 ISO on the A7S, but as you can see, it is not good at all. After reviewing the footage, Teppo, what do you think? Is it better or worse? Which one's better?
I don't know. I'm confused.
We've literally been pixel peeping over here, and I kind of, at first step was like, no, the A7S is definitely better, and then once I color graded, I was like, no, I think the A7 IV might be better at this A7's maxed out 100,000 ISO. I think the A7 is, I think it's better. I think it might be because of that oversampling from 7K to 4K. The noise ends up being finer, a little bit easier to deal with, and it looks like it's more detailed and things like my beard, and we're losing some of that. It's getting a little bit mushier on the A7S III. I don't know. Is this the new low light king? Gerald Undone, I'm sure, is going to do some crazy tests and he'll tell us the truth. But this was pretty mind-blowing for me. On top of the high quality video, you also get really high quality photos. This camera, you are not gonna be left wanting really in any way, shape, or form when it comes to photography. 33 megapixels, all the bells and whistles, shoots really fast. It's really everything you would ever need for photos. You really can't complain there. But trying to make a hybrid camera that can take really incredible photos does have some effects on the video side, which is where we get, I think, things like the crop on the 60 frames in 4K. Keep in mind though, this is a $2,500 camera, not like the Sony A7 III, which is $3,500, or the Canon R5, which is $3,900. The Sony A7 IV is the Canon R6 competitor, very similar specs on both the cameras. The R6, I believe, doesn't have a crop in 4K 60, but then the A7 IV has 33 megapixels, whereas the R6 only has 20 megapixels, so little differences, but very similar, exact same price range. Important to know that the A7 IV does have IBIS and doesn't have crazy wobble. Little jab there at Canon. And traditionally we've seen Canon as this autofocus king, but Sony is just really doing well in the autofocus department. I was so surprised that this camera was able to keep the focus locked on my brother as he was riding the one wheel through all those trees. There's just so many trees going by, and it just did so well. Actually, that was shot on the new, just announced 7200, which is incredible. The biggest difference is the weight. There's a massive difference with the first generation 7200. You can actually feel the difference. I think it's 500 grams, so that's like, what, that's like a pound difference. Better autofocus, less breathing, just overall an incredible zoom lens. The autofocus, just incredible in video and in photos. Dare I say it, it might be better than Canon's autofocus. I don't know, have we reached that point? I don't know. On top of that, we have S-Cinetone colors, which I absolutely love. 42210. That was my iPhone. 422 10-bit, super nice to color grade. The body is almost identical to the Sony A7 III, except the dial system is a little bit different, which I'm not sure if it's better or not, but it's different. And we only have one dual card slot that can take both SD and CF Express cards. The other slot can only take SD cards. And for the win, we have a flip LCD screen, which is super important, I think, for this camera, which I'll mention in just a second. The big question for this camera is, who is this camera for? And it is for those hybrid shooters that need really high quality video, but maybe not quite all of the bells and whistles of 4K 120 and 240 frames per second and all of that stuff. But you need really high quality photos. And there's a lot of people that need this all-in-one package and don't want to spend Sony A1 levels of money. That's like buying a car, except it's just a camera. Fun fact, I was at Unbox Therapy's office. I did the podcast with them. Check it out if you didn't see it yet. And Lou told me they have not one, not two, not three. They have 9 Sony A1s at the office. That is pretty nuts. Not to mention that, have you guys seen the room? It's absolutely nuts that it just goes forever of lights. One of the most surreal experiences being in that office. Anyways, of course, the Sony a7 IV is for the more budget-friendly shoppers who aren't willing to spend the prices of an a7S III or an R5 or something like that. The a7 IV is a great choice. And I would bet that the a7 IV, on paper, you're gonna be at first like, okay, and there's something else still, right? Like, I think we're expecting more than we're getting on paper. But then once you start using a camera like this, I feel like it could easily become just like the most popular workhorse camera that works for most people, especially content creators, YouTubers, where you're mostly filming in 24 frames per second like this. Looks incredible, and then you gotta take those IG photos or thumbnails, and the photos on this camera look so good. The wedding shooters who need both photo and video, the people in media in general, and you just need a camera that can do it all without having to sacrifice in big ways from one side or the other. It's a huge upgrade from the Sony a7 III, but again, I feel like a lot of people are gonna be a little bit underwhelmed by the specs, and I think we're so spoiled at how good the cameras are these days that it takes a lot to wow us. I feel like every camera that's coming out is just so good. So don't write off the Sony a7 IV right away just because you were expecting crazier specs. I really think this might be one of those cameras like the Canon R was in the beginning. It was so just underwhelming in specs, but at the time it worked so well for a lot of people. I feel like that's what this Sony a7 IV will be for 2021, 2022. Sony just keeps crushing it. If you guys have any questions, comment down below and I'll try to answer as many as I can. Thanks so much guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.